Who Not How, The Formula to Achieve Bigger Goals Through Accelerating Teamwork by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Picture this, the greatest basketball player on the planet, completely unstoppable. Michael Jordan, during his first 6 years in the NBA, was basically defying the laws of physics. Scoring titles? Check. MVP awards? You bet. The adoration of fans worldwide? Absolutely. But here's the thing that kept him up at night. He wasn't winning championships. Every single year, the Chicago Bulls would charge into the playoffs with hope blazing, and every single year, they'd come up short. Michael could drop 40, 50, even 60 points in a game, but somehow it wasn't enough. He had completely mastered the how of basketball. He knew how to score, how to defend, how to dominate his matchups. But the question haunting everyone in Chicago was the same. How can we actually win a championship? So what did Michael do? What most of us would do. He tried harder, practiced more, pushed himself past what seemed humanly possible. But guess what? It still wasn't working. Even the most talented player in the world couldn't do it alone. He'd mastered every how imaginable. But he was missing the crucial piece of the puzzle. He was missing the who. That's exactly where we're headed today. We're diving into a brilliantly simple, yet absolutely world-changing idea from Who Not How by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Now, don't think this is just another business or teamwork book. This is about fundamentally rewiring how you think about your goals, your limitations, and what you're truly capable of achieving. By the time we're done, you'll understand the single most powerful question you can ask to unlock a future bigger than anything you've imagined. It's what separates people who burn out and struggle from those who achieve extraordinary things while actually enjoying the journey. It's the difference between constantly asking how and starting to ask who. Here's something interesting. From the time we're tiny kids, we're trained to ask one specific question whenever we face a challenge or dream about something big. How do I do this? Seems pretty natural, right? Almost responsible. Want to build a website? You ask, how do I code? Want to get in shape? How do I create a workout plan? Want to start a business? How do I do absolutely everything myself? Our entire education system is basically built on this idea. We get assignments, and we're expected to complete them solo. Asking for help? That's often labeled as cheating. We're taught that the burden of figuring out the how sits squarely on our shoulders. And naturally, we drag this mindset right into our adult lives. We convince ourselves that to prove we're capable, to show our worth, we have to carry the entire load ourselves. But here's where Dan Sullivan, this legendary coach who's mentored thousands of the world's most successful entrepreneurs, throws a wrench in everything. He argues that this how question is actually the single biggest mistake we make. It's a trap. When you ask how, you're limiting your vision to what you, just one person, with your current knowledge and skills, can do right now. You're forcing yourself down this long, slow, often lonely path of trial and error. And what's the most common result? Procrastination. Think about it for a second. Why do we actually put things off? It's almost never because we're lazy. Procrastination is actually a form of wisdom. Your mind is basically saying, hey, this goal sounds exciting and ambitious, but you don't have the tools or knowledge to pull it off right now. When we ask, how, we get stuck, frustrated, and completely overwhelmed. Because the honest answer is usually, I have no idea. So that dream just sits there on a shelf, gathering dust, slowly transforming into this source of guilt and regret. This is where everything shifts. The book proposes a new, way more powerful question. The moment a new goal pops into your mind, instead of immediately asking, how can I do this, you should ask, who can help me with this? Sounds almost too simple, right? But that one word change, from how to who, changes absolutely everything. It completely shatters the cage of your own limitations. Suddenly, your goal isn't chained to your personal knowledge, your specific skills, or how much time you have available. It's about finding someone who already has the answers. Let me share a story from the book that makes this crystal clear. When a young guy named Richie Norton was just 16, he wanted to make some summer money. He did what any of us would do. He asked himself, how can I make money? His answer was pretty straightforward. Get a minimum wage job at a grocery store or gas station. He was ready to trade his entire summer, hundreds of hours of freedom, for a small paycheck. But then he did something brilliant. He asked his dad for advice. He found his first who. His dad, who happened to be an entrepreneur, thought completely differently. He told Richie, don't get a job, go to the watermelon farms. They throw away all the oddly shaped watermelons because stores won't buy them. You can get those for almost nothing. So Richie and his brother loaded up the family van with these irregular watermelons. This was right before the 4th of July. Then he opened the phone book, another who, and started calling neighbors, telling them he had delicious watermelons for a great price. In just a few hours, he'd sold every single one. In one afternoon, he made more money than he would have earned in an entire summer of flipping burgers, and he got to keep his freedom. How costs you time. Who saves you time. How is linear and slow. Who is exponential and immediate. By finding a who, Richie instantly got access to knowledge, a strategy, and a perspective he never could have come up with on his own. That one experience changed his life forever, teaching him to never sell his time cheaply again. This simple shift is the key to unlocking what the book calls the 4 freedoms. It starts with freedom of time. Most people, especially high achievers, genuinely believe they're working crazy hours because they have no choice. Take Sharon Duncan, for example. She was ambitious, successful, but completely burned out. Her stress was through the roof, and she had zero time for anything, especially not for her aging mother, who was this huge baseball fan. Then she got coached by Dan Sullivan, who taught her the who not how principle, light bulb moment. She had this new, deeply compelling why. She wanted to take her 82-year-old mom on a trip to see baseball games across the country, but how could she possibly do that? Her old mindset would have screamed that it was impossible. Her new mindset asked, who can do the work that's draining all my time? She hired just one person, a practice manager, to take over the tasks that were stressing her out. Just one. Who? And instantly, she freed up 500 hours a year. That's basically 3 full months of work. Her stress plummeted. Her vision expanded. And most importantly, she and her mom went to countless baseball games together, even attending every single game of the World Series. She created priceless memories that simply wouldn't have existed if she'd stayed stuck in the how trap. You see, time is the foundation for everything else. Once you start buying back your time by investing in whos, you unlock the second freedom, freedom of money. This is where a lot of people hit a wall. They think, I can't afford to hire anyone. But the book argues this is completely backward thinking. It's a cost mindset, not an investment mindset. You don't hire a who with the money you have. You hire a who to create the money you want. Let's look at Carl Castledean's story. He started his own company and, like most entrepreneurs, worked insane hours. He knew his company needed a better website, so he decided to learn how to code himself. For months, he stayed up all night, completely neglecting his role as CEO, just to build a website. He was exhausted, and his business was suffering. Finally, at his breaking point, he asked a web developer how much it would cost. The answer? About £1, 200. Carl was absolutely stunned. He had wasted hundreds of hours of his time that as a CEO was worth far, far more than that, just to save a relatively small amount of money. The opportunity cost was massive. Years later, he made the exact same mistake with his sales team. He managed it himself for 7 years. When he finally hired a professional sales manager, Who, the company's profits jumped by £2.5 million in the first year alone. The manager's salary was £120,000. It wasn't a cost. It was the best investment he ever made. Not hiring that who, years earlier, had cost him over £15 million in potential profit. When you invest in a who, you're not just delegating tasks. You're freeing up your mind. The book talks about decision fatigue, the idea that our brains get exhausted from making countless small decisions all day long. When you're worried about scheduling, answering emails, or fixing the air conditioner, your mind is caged. You don't have the mental space to think big, to be creative, to innovate. An attorney named Jacob Monty realized he was wasting 90 minutes a day just driving to and from work, dealing with traffic, finding parking, and feeling stressed. He started using Uber. Those 90 minutes were now spent preparing for high-stakes meetings, making important calls, or just thinking. The relatively small cost of the Uber ride generated a 10 times or even 100 times return because he showed up to his meetings prepared, calm, and focused. His income soared because he freed his mind. This leads us to a pretty profound statement from the book. If you have enough money to solve a problem, you don't actually have a problem. A guy named Wes Seark learned this lesson the hardest way possible. He'd just sold his company for a huge sum of money. He was a millionaire. A few weeks later, his air conditioner broke. The quote for a new one was $7,900. Wes thought, that's way too much. I used to be a contractor. I can rig something up myself and save a few $1,000s. He decided to climb onto his roof on a sweltering hot day to install a box fan. The next thing he knew, he was on the concrete below. He'd fallen, cracked his skull, and ended up in a coma for 2 days. For 2 months he was bedridden, terrified he might never be the same. And the one thought that haunted him over and over was Dan Sullivan's phrase, "If you have enough money to solve a problem, you don't have a problem." He had plenty of money. The broken air conditioner wasn't a real problem. His how mindset created a life-threatening one. He almost died trying to save a few bucks, all because he was still thinking in terms of cost, not investment. Once you have freedom of time and freedom of money, you can pursue the third and perhaps most important freedom of relationship. This isn't just about having more friends. It's about consciously choosing who you surround yourself with. As your goals get bigger, you need better who's. You need mentors, collaborators, and a team that elevates you. But it also means you have the freedom to say no to the wrong people. The book tells this incredible story of Chad Willardson, who runs a wealth management firm. He got a referral for a potential new client who just sold his business for $100 million. This was a massive opportunity. But from the very first phone call, the guy was abrasive, condescending, and incredibly demanding. He wanted Chad's team to bend all their rules and basically told them how to do their jobs. Chad's team felt disrespected, but they told him they'd deal with it because the client was so big. Over the weekend, Chad thought about it. He could take the money, but at what cost? The morale of his team, the culture of his company, his own peace of mind? He made a courageous decision. He called the man back and said, "Thank you for the opportunity, but we don't feel it's a great fit." He turned down a $100 million client. The man was shocked and angry, but Chad felt empowered. He'd chosen his team and his values over a massive paycheck. His team's trust and confidence in him absolutely soared. He was practicing freedom of relationship. He was being the buyer, not the seller, in his own life, choosing who gets to be a part of it. This freedom isn't about being arrogant. It's about creating transformational relationships, not transactional ones. Joe Polish, called the most connected man in business, has a simple philosophy for this. Before he connects with anyone, he doesn't ask, "What's in it for me?" He asks, "What's in it for them?" He does his homework and finds a way to provide real, genuine value first. That's how you build relationships with incredible people. You become a valuable who for them. It's a two-way street. Delegation isn't exploitation. It's collaboration where everyone wins. This all culminates in the fourth and final freedom. Freedom of purpose. Your purpose is your why. It's what you live for. And as you surround yourself with brilliant whos, your vision and purpose will expand in ways you could never have imagined on your own. Competition comes from a scarcity mindset, the belief that there's only one pie and you have to fight for your slice. Collaboration comes from an abundance mindset, the belief that together you can make the pie bigger for everyone. A lawyer named Karen Nance had been trying for 20 years to write a biography about her grandmother, a civil rights activist. She felt a deep sense of purpose, but she was a busy attorney, and the project was crawling along at a snail's pace. Then she got an email. A history professor, an expert in the field, was also writing a biography on her grandmother and was already 100 pages in. Karen's first reaction was competition. I have to beat her to it. I won't share any of my family's private information. She was stressed, anxious, and stuck in the how trap. But then she realized something. Wait a minute. This professor is the perfect who? She reached out and proposed they co-author the book. The professor was ecstatic. Suddenly, Karen's burden was lifted. The book would now be written faster. It would be far better because it combined the professor's expertise with Karen's personal insight, and it would reach a much larger audience. Her purpose hadn't been diminished. It had been amplified through collaboration. The vision became bigger than she ever could have created alone. This is the ultimate magic of who, not how. It's not just about getting more done. It's about becoming more than you could ever be on your own. The book shares the story of J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. Most people think of them as lone geniuses, but the truth is, without each other's encouragement and feedback, The Lord of the Rings and the Chronicles of Narnia might never have been completed. They were each other's most important who. Lewis gave Tolkien the confidence that his private hobby could be something extraordinary. Tolkien helped guide Lewis back to the faith that would inspire his greatest works. Their purpose expanded because they had each other. Ultimately, the goal is to be a hero to the people you work with and the people you serve. Mary Miller, the CEO of a janitorial company called JANCOA, embodies this perfectly. In an industry with a 400% turnover rate, her company's is just 15%. Why? Because she asked her employees, what their biggest struggles were. The answer was transportation. So the company partnered with local services to provide free transportation. They invest in their employees' dreams, helping them with education and personal development. They aren't just cleaning toilets. They're part of a company that's helping them build a better life. Just like that famous story of the janitor at NASA who, when asked what he did, replied, "I'm helping put a man on the moon." When you give people a purpose, they do their best work. The entire Strategic Coach Company, founded by Dan Sullivan and his wife Babs, is a living testament to this principle. Babs was Dan's first and most important, who, seeing the potential in his ideas and building the entire structure around him so he could be free to do what only he could do, create. That's the essence of who, not how. It's a journey from being a lone operator, trapped by your own limitations, to becoming a visionary who orchestrates brilliant collaborations. It's about having the courage to admit you don't have all the answers, and the wisdom to find the people who do. When you really step back and look at the message of who, not how, it's so much more than a productivity hack. It's a philosophy of life that challenges one of the most fundamental and deeply flawed ideas we've been taught, that our value is determined by what we can do completely by ourselves. We live in a culture that absolutely glorifies the self-made individual, the lone genius, the solo hero. But this book gently and very wisely pulls back the curtain on that myth. Michael Jordan needed Scottie Pippen and Phil Jackson. J.R.R. Tolkien needed C.S. Lewis. Every great achievement in history is really a story of collaboration, of one person's vision being amplified by another's skill. The most powerful lesson for me is how this simple question, who, not how, is really a tool for self-awareness. When you procrastinate, it's not a character flaw. It's a signal. It's your mind telling you that you've hit the boundary of your current capabilities. The old way is to beat yourself up about it. The new way is to see it as an exciting invitation to find a self-who. It reframes failure and frustration into opportunities for connection and growth. For anyone starting out, whether you're 17 or 47, this concept can feel intimidating. Investing in others seems like something you do when you're already successful. But the book flips that completely on its head. It argues that investing in whos is precisely how you become successful in the first place. It's an act of courage. It's a bet on your own vision. It's telling the world, this goal is so important that I will not let my own limitations stop it. So how can you start applying this today, right now, in your own life? Let me suggest 3 simple things. First, identify one area of your life where you're stuck. It could be a school project you're putting off, learning an instrument, or even a chore you absolutely despise. Just one thing. Now, instead of asking, how can I force myself to do this? Ask, who could help me? It might be a classmate who understands the subject better. It might be a YouTube tutorial, a digital who. It might be a parent or a sibling. The act of asking is the first step. Second, practice being a valuable who for someone else. This is the flip side of the coin. Reach out to a friend and ask them, what's the biggest thing you're working on right now? And is there any way I can help? Don't wait for them to ask. Offer your skills, your time, or just your encouragement. When you learn to provide value first, you begin to attract other givers into your life. You build your own network of brilliant whos. And finally, redefine your relationship with money. Even if you don't have much of it right now, start thinking about it not just as something to spend, but as a tool to buy back your time. Could you pay a neighbor's kid $20 to mow the lawn, freeing up 2 hours for you to study or work on a project you love? That's not a cost. That's an investment in your focus and your future. That was a summary of Who Not How by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. We've explored the core ideas today, but I'll be honest with you. A summary is like looking at a postcard of the Grand Canyon. It gives you a sense of the beauty, but it can never replace the feeling of standing on the edge, taking in the vastness for yourself. The real magic happens when you read the book. It's in the quiet moments when a particular story or a simple phrase connects with your own life in a way you didn't expect. This summary is a map to help you decide if this is a journey worth taking. If anything we've talked about today has sparked something in you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change the way you approach every goal for the rest of your life. A link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the Billionaire's Bookshelf. Your support allows us to keep growing together, one idea at a time. Thank you for listening.